Batman equips his utility belt with time-tested gadgets that he relies on to improve his abilities to keep the citizens of Gotham safe and save his own life. As a mixer, I wanted to know what would go in my own mixing utility belt and save me from being killed by a terrible mix. So I suited up to put together my own utility belt with plugins that have improved my mixing tenfold. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to make your own mixing utility belt that you can rely on to keep you and the artists you work with safe from a bad mix. Looking at the entire mix process, I needed to take a look at the most boring stage of mixing, which is also the most important part that all of us like to skip and outsource whenever possible. It's what the entire session is built on, just like the foundation for building a house. It's a rigorous process of reviewing the session to see if any more editing needs to be taken care of before organizing the session. But there's another part that for newer and experienced mixers is frighteningly intimidating. Mastering this is what separates the pros from the wannabes, and it's an essential step in the mix prep stage, because correcting the phase and polarity issues will elevate any production to the next level. But to be honest, I'm lazy. Really lazy. So doing this manually is a pain in the butt I always like to avoid at all costs. So it was no surprise when I discovered SoundRadix's auto line all over my sessions. I mean, it's simple enough to use. You sidechain one instrument to another, you press play, the plugin figures out the phase and polarity alignment for you, and you're done. Breaking down your mix prep process can help you find tools like AutoLine to make this part of the mixing process as easy as possible, and is step one in making your own mixing utility belt. After breaking down the mix prep stage, it seems like the next step of reviewing my process would be making a note of every plugin I use in every mix and picking the ones that get used most often, right? But in doing this, I'll end up with a huge list of plugins and I'll start finding reasons to hoard plugins like I'm prepping for a mix Armageddon. So instead of making a list of every single plugin I'm using in every single mix, like Batman, I decided to use my detective skills to reverse engineer my thought process behind my workflow. See, I started to notice I make big picture moves on the bus level of my mixes. Looking at my guitar buzz, for example, I have an EQ for color, a compressor to tame some peaks, Soothe 2 to help kill any stray resonant peaks in the guitar, and another surgical EQ for that dreaded whistly 4K we all hate, and maybe some final tweaking. Along with the multiband compressor for the low mids, and even a spreader or spreader bus to use on an as-needed basis. It's a lot of stuff, and I want to eliminate using 60 to 70% of these plugins. So I went through all my plugins and actually re-remembered. Is re-remembered even a word?
What did he say?
Well, anyways, I re-remembered I had a plugin that had a musical EQ, compressor, resonance taming, and a stereo spreader. All these features are built into Cornif Audio's Amplified Instrument Processor plugin. Cornif Audio's 8 plugin would eliminate 4 out of the 6 plugins I was using. On my bass bus, I tend to use a compressor, a multiband compressor, a musical EQ, some sort of saturation plugin, and something to make the low end sound bigger like Waves Max Bass. I was able to find one plugin that can handle most of the sculpting of the bass, and I don't think it's a plugin most people know of. Double Tap from Submission Audio has a simple pedal-esque user interface that gives you control over the compression of the low end, the entire spectrum, and some saturation. It's super easy and fast to use, and it puts the bass in the pocket of the mix with ease. So with my drum bus, it's usually a combination of parallel buses for distortion for punch, heavier compression for the smack, and then a main drum bus for some light compression for glue that all gets summed down. So I was able to eliminate my parallel buses with an extremely powerful and I think unknown plugin again called Parallel Aggressor that's from Baby Audio. And with the vocal bus, I realized I'm having a tougher time because I mix with effects while I'm mixing vocals. And right now, I'm not sure how I'm going to simplify my vocal bus. So instead of staying stuck, I decided to put the vocal bus on pause and move on from the bus level of my mixing, which is step 2 of making a mixing utility belt. If the first step is building the foundation for the house, step 2 builds the walls and the roof, and then the next step is just as important. It's the part that, if not done correctly, can lead to so many costly issues for that house down the road. And we want to avoid this type of costly mistake in our own mixes. But for the drums, I thought about a couple of channel strips, but none of the channel strips usually work for my style of mixing. And a plugin that can help me get the dynamics in check how I like, but also give me that shell MIDI I need, is Drumgate from Sonics. Next was to figure out if I could find a compressor that I can use on about 90% of the session. And I bounced between VCA, Opto, and FET style compression, so that's a tall order. Then I had a "are you kidding me" duh moment, and the answer was staring me right in the face and I hadn't even realized it. Because there is one compressor that can mimic these different styles of compression, you just have to know how to dial it in right. It's often referred to as the Swiss Army knife of compressors by several top producers and mixers. And that's the Empirical Labs Distressor. And the Arouser manual guides you on how to get these similar results you would get with the physical distressor and more. The last part of the dynamics is just a clipper, and honestly, Clip from Joey Sturgis Tones is simple to use, so in the belt it goes. I wish all the choices were as easy as that one. So taking your time on step 3 is going to help you find the right Swiss Army knife gear for you that's going to help you speed up your workflow. Just about every mixer has their go-tos for EQ and compression that they prefer to use at the final stage of a mix. But being an in-the-box mixer, I tend to change what I like on my mix bus or master fader based on the song in front of me. And this is where IK Multimedia's T-Rax is amazing. I can pick different types of EQs and compressors on the mix bus, and any additional effects like the quad stereo spreader, feed that into my mastering chain that typically consists of stealth limiter and maybe an EQ. And I can have all these within the suite, plus variations of these chains for fast recallability. Who said mixers can't be productivity dorks too? But actually thinking about using T-Rax as a suite, I totally forgot again that there was an answer right in front of me for my vocal bus dilemma. And it's actually a plugin bundle I use a lot, and it would actually help me simplify the mix at every level. So I'm gonna cheat, and I'm gonna add the Chrysalis Algae plugin bundle to my utility belt. Each plugin is optimized for different instruments, and to be honest, I'm not gonna beat Chrysalis Algae in a mix, so why not just use his superpowers in my own mix? Now you know the 4 easy steps of finding your own mixing utility belt. But this is just the first step, and you'll want to check out this video for another tool that will take your engineering efficiency to the next level.